Improvement Pill here. I want to welcome you to lesson 6 of the Tamed course. In the last couple of videos, we focused on habits, how habits worked, what are some of the best habits, and also how to properly build them. If you have not watched any of those videos yet, pause this video right now and click on the link in the description below. It will bring you to a playlist with all of the lessons of the Tamed course in chronological order. In today's lesson, I'm going to introduce you to a very important concept that will change the way you look at your life and especially your habits, a concept called willpower. We're going to cover whether or not willpower is even real. If so, how does it work? And finally, what happens when your levels of willpower drop below a certain threshold? A study was conducted in 1998 by a famous psychologist, Roy Baumeister. He took 3 groups of people and had them fast so that they were hungry. He had the first 2 groups sit down at a table with 2 bowls in front of them, a bowl of warm cookies and a bowl of radishes. The first group was instructed to help themselves to whatever they wanted. The second group was not allowed to eat any cookies. And the third group was the control group. They sat in an empty room with no food in front of them. After a while, the 3 groups were taken to another room where they were asked to work on some puzzles. They were told that this was a test of reasoning, but these puzzles were actually unsolvable. What the researchers were looking at was how long these groups of people would try to solve these puzzles before giving up. The room that was allowed to eat cookies lasted about 20 minutes. The control group, who sat in an empty room and had no food, also lasted about 20 minutes. Now here's the interesting part. The group that had to resist eating the cookies only lasted 8 minutes. Now, what does this study show us? First of all, it shows us that willpower is very real. The group that had to resist eating the cookies had lower levels of something. Something was used to resist eating those cookies, and that something is willpower. And because they used a lot of it while resisting those cookies, they had a harder time working on the puzzles. So the metaphor of willpower being like a muscle is actually true. The more you use this mental muscle, the less mental strength you have throughout the day. The metaphor of willpower being like a battery is also very true. It turns out that we start off with a certain amount of willpower every single day, and by doing mentally strenuous tasks, the amount we have decreases. And just like a battery, there are ways to recharge your levels of willpower. But if the amount of willpower you have drops below a certain threshold, if your battery levels get low, interesting things start to happen. The official term for this state is called ego depletion. Scientists have conducted active brain scans on subjects who had their levels of willpower purposely lowered. They found that when you're in a state of ego depletion, your brain literally fires slower. On top of that, the alarm system in your brain for errors becomes weaker. This means that you will have a harder time spotting errors in your work. So you're more likely to do worse on tests and more likely to say the wrong things during important conversations like business meetings or even dates. They also found that people in the state of ego depletion have a harder time controlling their reactions. This means that you're more likely to become emotional, to get angry, or to cry over something small. Not only that, but your ability to withstand pain is also drastically decreased. Studies found that people in a state of ego depletion literally felt more pain when they stuck their hand in a bucket of water. And most importantly, when you're in a state of ego depletion, it becomes extremely hard for you to make the right decisions. This is because of 2 reasons. Number 1, when you're in a state of ego depletion, you become more impulsive and temptations feel a lot stronger. A study found that when ego-depleted subjects were presented with a gift-wrapped box, they felt a huge increase on average in desire to open it. Number 2, bad habits that have been ingrained in your mind, like your smoking habit or your drinking problem, become extremely hard to resist. This is because these habits are so ingrained in your brain that they don't use up any willpower, but actively trying to resist them does. So if you've ever found yourself cheating on your diet, or coming up with excuses not to go to the gym, or even having extremely strong cravings for a drink after quitting for months, it's most likely because you're in a state of ego depletion. This is extremely important information because it shows us just how much of our habits are affected by our levels of willpower. For example, a study found that during exam times, students would smoke more, exercise less, eat more unhealthy, and even have worse hygiene, because all of their willpower is focused on studying for their exams. This means they have less willpower for all the other stuff. Here's another example. If you've ever been sick before, you've probably noticed that you have a harder time sticking to good habits. This is because when you're sick, your body focuses most of its energy on fighting the disease. It's actually been proven by scientists that your levels of willpower are significantly lower when you're sick. And because of this, your ability to make the right decisions go out the window, and that's why we feel so unmotivated to stick to our good habits when we're feeling ill. So now that we know willpower is real, and we know what happens when we enter the state of ego depletion, this brings up a couple of good questions. Number one, what lowers our willpower throughout the day? Is there a way to conserve our willpower? Number two, how can we recharge our willpower so that we can avoid staying in a state of ego depletion? And number three, is there a way to permanently increase the size of our battery, to increase the amount of willpower we have every day? We'll answer these three questions over the course of the next 3 videos. The Tamed Course was made possible by the patrons of this channel. If you'd like to support the channel and also gain some of the benefits that certain patrons have, such as being able to speak with me on a private server and access to a book club where we read books together and discuss things that we've learned, check out my Patreon page right here. Besides that, guys, stay tuned.